Hi, and welcome to this lightning talk on Azure Devops Starters. I am Mike Martin. I am a cloud solution architect for Microsoft, where I am evangelizing most of the technologies regarding cloud native development and of course also DevOps. And today I'm going to talk to you about something which we all know, things like GitHub and Azure DevOps. And the thing is, there's one little hidden gem inside of the Azure portal that a lot of people don't realize that can save their time and their lives. And to make it even more enticing, I'm just going to demo only on this little secret that you can find hidden in plain sight on the Azure portal. Let's get started. So when we go to the Azure portal, there's this thing called Devops Starters. If you look for it at the search bar, you can see DevOps appearing where you type it in. Now, the Devops Starter is actually there to help you quickly set up a DevOps environment with a full CI/CD pipeline based upon multiple technologies, multiple languages, but also multiple ways of building your pipeline and deploying it to different kind of services in Azure. Now, one of the cool things is that if you add one, I'm going to do this for the sake of a demo, you first now have the choice where to get started with, of course, a new application or with existing code. But the thing is, you don't see that in the new startup page. Why? Because we start off with GitHub and not with Azure DevOps, but you can still use Azure DevOps as your pipeline orchestrator. And if you want to change that, you can change the settings here, as you can see here. And when you then select Azure DevOps or GitHub, the changes will appear in the main window. So if I select Azure DevOps, you will actually see that you will be able to choose even more languages like C for IoT, but also to bring your own code. So from here out, you can actually say, select my GitHub starter or select my GitHub repository that I want to build and get started from that one. I already prepared one of those as a demo, which I'm going to demonstrate in a second. But I'm just going to run through with a clean application in any language that we have. So just for the fun of it, I'm going to go with Java. I'm going to go and take next. Remember that I am still in Devops Starter. I'm still in Azure DevOps Pipelines. Okay. What I'm going to do here, I'm going to select Spring, a Spring application. Spring is one of the more popular frameworks when it comes down to Java. And today we can run Spring into multiple services in Azure. We can run them natively in VMs, but we can also run them in Azure Spring Cloud, for instance, or natively in Kubernetes. So if you then click Next on the service, we can actually choose some of these services. As you can see here, we are limited here now into Linux Web App, Windows Web App, or Kubernetes servers, or Web App for containers. And either choice will generate one of these services for me and deploy the sample application that is there. Now, you're probably wondering, what's the use of this then if we already have that? Well, if you just replace the source code in 95% of all the cases, your build and deployment pipeline will still be the same. You just need to rename the artifacts that you're generating and fiddle with some of the properties that you have in your CI/CD pipeline. So just for the fun of it, I'm just going to go here with a Windows web app. Create it. Then I get all the questions regarding in this case, the Azure DevOps pipeline. So for this one, I'm going to go with an Azure DevOps project name. So I'm going to say Spring Java CLL demo, because this is Cloud Lunch Learn. We're going to put this in my DevOps organization named, if it's willing to collaborate with me. Let me immediately set my correct subscription here. So that's on my Microsoft demo account. I'm going to select this one. Here we go. So MSFT 2KX. I'm going to give it a new web application name because this needs to be unique, and I'm going to deploy this in Western Europe. Now you also have some additional settings that you can set. For instance, here this is going to go for premium. I'm not going to go for premium, it's a little pricey, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to go for standard as one environment. Even going to deploy it, even is going to deploy me some application insights, and I can even choose to create a new Azure DevOps organization. But for now, I'm going to just create a new resource group, go with the standard pricing tier. I'm not a rich man, even if I work for Microsoft. I'm not a rich man. I can just say OK. All the settings have been set, and then I can go and review and create. Now, what will happen behind the scenes is the default project will be loaded. I need to create a. There's a limit here on my settings, but that's because I did too many deployments. But it's okay. So in the background, it will start creating a new application for me. So a new DevOps Starter dashboard. So let's go back to my all services. Go back to my DevOps Starter page. As you can see, I already created a couple of them. Now, the one that I started earlier was a DevOps pipeline, an Azure DevOps. So that's this one. What it does, it creates an additional dashboard for you. This is the GitHub one. So it's this one I created earlier in Azure DevOps Pipelines. So here we go. So this is one I created earlier in DevOps Pipelines. So what we can see here, it is actually bringing me a new dashboard look on all my DevOps infrastructure. I can see in a single pane of glass the CI/CD pipeline, how the flow is going, where my code is hosted, how the build is going along, and how my deployment is going along, what the repository is. But I can also see the application endpoints. I can see the services that are being consumed, the deployment or the release which is hosting with it, and even the application insights instance that is hosting all the telemetry for this deployment. Cool thing is that you can immediately just click through on these items, and that you can immediately get pointed to the correct instance. Like for instance, here I have my CI pipeline. If I go in here and I do edit, you will actually be able to edit it and adapt it to your needs. Like for instance, if you want to add things like some SAST scanning, or if you want to add some additional build testing or whatever you do, you can actually just implement it from there out. As you can see, this is a very simple build. I'm just doing a deployment of a container registry. I built the container image, and then I push the image into the container registry, which was created earlier. If we then take a look for the deployment pipeline, for instance, so the release pipeline, you will actually see that even that is not as complex as you think. Here we go, but it's just a single 2-task job that we have, where it does a deployment of an app service and then it deploys immediately to the app service. So this gives you a simple CI/CD pipeline which you can easily adapt to your needs, and already has a working build for you, and you can just change it to your needs. The same happens now today with GitHub. So if you take a look at our an earlier created GitHub DevOps Starter, the cool thing is that if you do that, let me just go through that wizard again, my GitHub perspective, is that this now can start with a new clean project only for so far, but that will change probably somewhere in the future. So let's say I'm going to go with a static website. I'm going to go next. I can say, okay, I'm going to go with this framework. service where I want to add is like a web app for containers. And now you need to authorize your GitHub environment. Now for Devops Starters, it's immediately bound to your AAD. For GitHub, it is still my GitHub used. And here I can say I'm going to create a new demo for CLL. I'm going to put this into the MSFT subscription. And I'm going to name this website, and I'm going to go with Western Europe. So that's all you need, and then it will create an empty project with some demo code in there, set it all up, and then it will create a workflow file or a YAML file for actions, which then will handle the deployment. So if you take a look at it from an in-depth part, you will actually see this here. So what happened here is it created a source, it did a commit on that, and then added the workflow file. And then we have two jobs which you can monitor separately. So each of the parts in the workflow file that is being created as a job will be actually displayed here. So what I can do here is I can edit the workflow file immediately from here. You can see that, and here you see the full action flow. This is the latest build that has happened. So we have a build and we have a deploy to AKS. If you take a look at the code itself, you will see that there's a GitHub flow here. YAML file, which you can then change. You can even change some of the environment variables. It does it in a very secure way because it points away the credentials inside of a GitHub secret, which you can maintain from your project, and then it does a separate build and a separate deploy. So it's really cool. And even you just use some cool things like Helm charts. Creates secrets, does some here it does some Azure command line callings like the AZ commands that you're using. So it's pretty neat as a setup, and you can easily use that to build an existing CI/CD pipeline, or just change your code completely and just start building from there. The cool thing about it is that it also comes integrated with the monitoring part. From here out, we immediately have an application insight set up based upon the project that we have. So from here out, I can select immediately all the running telemetry. I can take a look at the application map, which has been deployed. As you can see, so there's a simple app, 2 calls, some instances, and also, if you take a look at the infrastructure that it is running on, you will see that this will differ from the resources where you're running on. So in this case, I'm running in a Kubernetes service. If it were an app service, you would probably see something like this. Let me just see. Normally, we would be able to see that. I think this one has. Yeah, so as you see, this is an app service that just has an application endpoint and will immediately point to the web page itself. But for the GitHub and for the Kubernetes part, it will point to the IP address where the Kubernetes application is running in. So if you then take a look at the external endpoint, you will see that this is running inside of a Kubernetes on this IP address. So you can then start managing everything on top of that, like firewalls, WAF, front door if you want it, API management if you need it. So these are all the things that you can actually start implementing. And from here out, we can also just pass through immediately to the infrastructure itself and start looking at the management part of that. So we can take a look at the container insights for that matter, seeing how many instances, nodes, and all the things that have been deployed. There you go. So here you can see the node count. There's 3 nodes deployed. There's this is the utilization. There's the node memory, all the things that you can do. And there's also, which is pretty cool, a direct link with the deployment center for the applications. Or it should be. So from here out, you can actually start monitoring everything. You can take a look at the workloads. It should have been deployed. Here we go. So there's a sample app. As you can see, it has two. If you click through on this one, you'll actually see that there's there's actually two pods running. Another thing that can be set here. You can even take a look at the YAML file which has been deployed against the Kubernetes, all being generated for you, just like it should be. And you get this all out of the box by just using these wizards. So you can just easily set up a CI/CD pipeline with even a complex infrastructure behind it, and then you can take it from there. So it will already save you a lot of work. You can even quickly change the background project. The only downside is if you do that, the link in here, take a look from this perspective, the link in here will sometimes be broken because it cannot find it back from the DevOps project, but that's okay because everything else will still work. All right, having that said, thank you for your attention. I hope you enjoyed the information that I gave you. Have a pleasant remainder of the Cloud Lunch and Learn Marathon. Again, I want to thank our sponsors, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the event. Bye bye.